Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and you are welcome to today's edition of our webinar that we have started. This is the 7th in the series, and today we'll be looking at hashtag Black Lives Matter. Essentially, we want to look at discussions around Blacks, around racism, around xenophobia, and ask critical questions. What is exactly the problem with acceptance of Black or rejection, and what have you? We have with us today this eminent discussants. We have Professor Olatunji Oyeshile, University of Ibadan. We have Professor Omolade Adunbi from University of Michigan. We have Dr. Ademola Azeez from Babalola University. We have Babatunde Oluajo from Abuja. He's a scholar and also an activist. We have Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti. She's a scholar and also here with us in Babalola University, Ado-Ekiti. We have Yemisi Ilesanmi. Yemisi is a lawyer and a civil rights activist. She lives in the United Kingdom. So you are all welcome to the program. We also have our attendees with us. We have our usual some of our friends. We have Dr. Temidayo, Professor Four. We have the regular Adejoke Adetoro is online. You are all welcome. And also Engineer Oyebode, thank you. Joseph Fasai, thanks. Noah Balogun, and Mr. Femi Olobatu, and Agbola, and a lot of them. Thank you for joining us. Let's come back to our panelists. And I'll start with Professor Tunji Oyeshile. Professor Oyeshile, what exactly do you think is the problem with, can we first of all discuss the idea of Black Lives Matter? What, in your opinion, because we know all lives matter, there have been questions about why only Black lives, why not all lives matter? What do you think is the basis for this protest about Black Lives Matter? Professor Tunji Oyeshile, you want to give us an angle? You have your 10 minutes. You have the floor.
So much. I want to start by thanking the organizers, especially Professor Yemi Ademola and my co-panelists. Well, I'm sorry I'm not using my mask. I feel that I'm talking by proxy, so I don't need the mask. But concerning Black lives, I want to start by saying every life matters, or all lives matter. But the recent appeal to Black life is as a result of the discrimination, perceived discrimination, which we feel the Blacks, especially in Western world, have suffered in the past decades. But I want to take the issue from a philosophical perspective, that the concept of race or ethnicity is as primordial as humankind. In other words, one will have to be born into a particular biological group or social group. And within the social group in which you are born, you have some affiliation, some passion for that group. And so you want to ward any perceived threat from the other, philosophically speaking, the other. So it's not between the self and the other. And we cannot talk about the problem of identity and difference. The problem of identity and difference, which invariably leads to a politics of identity. Now, what we have witnessed in the US is as a result of several years of certain perception, the blacks are seen as tools, going back to slave trade. And over the years, the blacks too have not outgrown that in spite of the large level of freedom accorded them. But I want to say that there is need for introspection, because how can they just hate black every time? Do blacks behave well? Do they contest certain things with their hosts? And the threat began when you consider the economic space. If the economic space is receding, the host is bound to say, oh, the outsider or the other is becoming a threat. But much more fundamental is the fact that blacks themselves don't respect black. Because as we have witnessed over the years, the integrity on the part of the black has been compromised by home government of the black, such that we are now in the second wave of slavery, that the home environment is not conducive. And because the home environment is not conducive in most African countries, Africans, young Africans, want to leave the continent at all costs. They don't mind dying in the Atlantic. And so when they get there, these people they are joining, the whites, they know that they don't have any home they can call theirs, or they don't have any home that really caters for them. And so if you don't have that dignity at home, how do you expect that they give such dignity to you outside? That is the fundamental problem. Because if the home environment is conducive, there will be less need for blacks to migrate. I'm not talking about Afro-Americans, because on the part of the Afro-Americans, it's much more difficult, because they are alienated from the white race, from the white environment in which they grew up, and they can't come back to Africa because they can hardly trace their roots. So they are in a big dilemma. But they have tried over the years to live with that dilemma by saying they don't really care what happens to them. But the blacks who move from Africa to Europe or to America are not welcome, because they feel that Europe and America are safe havens. And the white will say, if your leaders cannot take good care of you at home, why do you have to come here and become a burden? Not taking into cognizance the ability of the black, because the black man has as much potential as his white counterpart. And put them in any condition, they can excel. But when they go as underdogs. They are looking for space. They are looking for political space, economic space particularly. And so, and you see there's this multiplier effect. You bring in one black man, before you know it, there are 3, there are 4, there are 20, and their hosts become threatened. So the xenophobic attack in South Africa, that's between black and black, is as a result of economic displacement, where their hosts feel that, oh, these outsiders are coming to take over their economic space, and if possible, political space. Forget about all this theory of justice we preach. Theories of justice, morality can only be meaningful where you don't have scarcity of resources. But the moment you have scarcity of resources, competition is inevitable. And going back to Benedict Anderson, Appiah, who said that ethnicity is a myth. No, it's not a myth. It is very, very real, because in today's world, people are going back to nationalism, some form of nationalism. They want to claim what belongs to them. And that's what people are trying to prevent in America. Nationalism will be opposed. But the fundamental thing is that if you don't take care of the home environment, now look at the misgovernance in many African countries. On a daily basis, several hundreds of blacks are killed from, like in Nigeria, Boko Haram attack, kidnapping, and so on and so forth. Even people die from hunger and
We
poverty.
agree, sir. We agree with you, sir. Prof, sir.
So when these problems are there, so what I'm just trying to say is that lives matter. Black lives will only matter when Black people take Black lives with all seriousness. Our leaders in Africa are the major problem, because when we don't have leaders that take care of their citizens, when the citizens don't have a lease of life, when they don't have anywhere to point to, they have to migrate. The first thing that will restore our dignity is for us to have good governance at home. So that if you have good governance, even if you want to travel, yeah.
Prof, we'll come back to you. We'll come back to you. Let's hear from Professor Adunbi. Professor Adunbi, Professor Oyeshile has been saying a lot, and he seems to concentrate more on the immigrants. And for him, the idea of ethnicity being not real is a worse. It's not something that we should align with. What is your opinion about this? He has concentrated so much and concentrated so much on the migrant, the migrant force or the blacks in other countries. What is your opinion about Black Lives Matter, sir?
Thank you very much, Professor Ademola, for having me, and thanks to everyone for being here this morning. There are a lot to respond to in what Professor Oyeshile said, and I hope I will have time to discuss some of the ideas he brought up later. But first, I want to concentrate on what actually racism means and what is racism. And in doing this, I think it's important for us to go back into history, because when we understand history, history tells us why we are in this present predicament. And I'm going to focus on three ideas here, three ideas about racism. The first is internalized racism, and the second will be horizontal racism. And the third will be race as a determinant of culture, which also ties in with some of the ideas that Professor Oyeshile mentioned in his presentation. Then I'm going to conclude by applying the same logic to ethnicity. And my issue here is that when we ask the question, how about ethnicity in Nigeria? So what does that mean? And how can we apply the same logic of racism to ethnicity, or what I call ethnicism in Nigeria? So my answer will be a categorical yes, that yes, we can apply the same logic to this, and I'll come back to that in a moment. But first, just like Professor Oyeshile mentioned, many will suggest that racism has existed throughout human history. However, how might we define racism today? And in defining racism, we will come to the conclusion about why Black lives actually matter, not only in the United States and other parts of the Western world, but in many African countries too. So racism, for example, has been defined by several scholars as the hatred of one person by another, or the belief that another person is less than human because of skin color, or because of language, or because of customs, or because of place of birth, or any factor that supposedly reveals the basic nature of that person. So it has supposedly, and this definition of racism has influenced wars, slavery, the formation of nations, and legal codes. So basically, one can say racism is also a system of advantages or privileges based on one's skin color. But let's start from 1619. 1619 was the first time a lot of Africans were forced through involuntary migration or kidnapped, if I may use that, and brought to the United States here. So in actual fact, a lot of African Americans got to the United States before many of those who claim in quotes to own the United States today, because a lot of them came after 1619. But the first set of people that came to the US or that were forced or kidnapped and brought to the US were Africans from the coast of West Africa. So basically, if we want to make a claim about who owns the United States, there are two people that we can ascribe that to. The first is the Native Americans, who are the original owners of the land we know as the United States today. And second are the African Americans, who were forced through kidnapping and slavery and brought to the United States. So, and later the Europeans came. So the Europeans, even though they were bringing slaves here, they never considered this place as theirs. So they only saw the United States as a space where they could do business, where they could establish plantations and all of those. But so that was 1619 when the whole episode started. But fast forward to the 19th century. So in the 19th and 20th century, for example, Darwinism, colonialism, and religious practices, especially Christianity, was used to systematically structure racism in many societies, including many African societies. So European, and to a lesser degree, American scientists and philosophers devised a false racial science to prove the supremacy of non-whites, or the supremacy of non-Jewish whites. So examples of this can be seen in the institutionalization of apartheid in South Africa, or the narrative about Hamitic hypothesis, which eventually led to genocide in Rwanda. And for example, the tripartite rule of the Belgians, which led to the enslavement of millions of Africans within Africa by just one guy, King Leopold II, who saw the entire landscape of the Congo area as his personal estate, and he enslaved all of those who were living there and forced them to work in his plantation. So, but racism can also be classified as internalized racism, just like I said earlier on, and as a determinant of culture, and as horizontal. So, internalized racism is when a minority believes that whites are superior. So, and this is when someone who is being oppressed accepts his or her own oppression and begin to feel that someone who claim to be superior to him or her is actually superior. So this is when someone internalizes the process of racism and begin to accept his own way of life as inferior to others. So, for example, there were studies conducted in the US here in the 1960s. And in this study, so black doll and a white doll were presented to a group of kids. And when the kids were asked, which one would you prefer? These were black kids. And all of them picked white doll. And what does this tell us? It tells us that they have internalized this idea of racism that, oh, because white is superior to us, so we gravitate towards those who are superior to us. Therefore, we pick white dolls. Then in 2005, there was a teen filmmaker who conducted a similar study and found that 64% of the girls preferred the white dolls. And the girls attributed physical traits associated with white, such as straighter hair, with being more desirable than traits associated with blacks. So when you think about this, even if we flash our mind back to Nigeria, we sort of have internalized racism in this way. And this is why we see a lot of people bleach their skin, because they have accepted the fact that whites are superior and they have a desirable skin. Therefore, they want to bleach their black skin so that they want to look more like a white person. So that in itself is an internalized form of racism. Then what about horizontal racism? Horizontal racism is when members of minority groups adopt racist attitudes towards other minority groups. So because we have internalized racism in certain ways, then even within minority groups, we begin to see also others who we think are superior to one another. So this might be, for example, that Japanese might think they are superior to blacks, or even African Americans or Africans who are coming here to the United States might see themselves as superior to African Americans because they feel that they are coming from the continent and they have more connection to the continent than the African Americans who may not have that connection. So that in itself is also a form of racism that scholars will call horizontal racism. Then the last part that I want to talk about, there are more which we can talk about later during question and answer, is race as a determinant of culture. So, for example, up to the late 1960s, racism was defined as a doctrine or a dogma or an ideology or a set of beliefs. And the central theme of this doctrine was that race determined culture. So some cultures were deemed to be superior to others. Therefore, some races were also deemed to be superior to others. So during the 60s, the definition of racism was expanded to include the practices, attitudes, and beliefs that support the notion of racial superiority and inferiority. And such beliefs and practices produced racial discrimination. And when you think about it, so why do people believe that they are superior to one another? So science have proven that our body composition is 99% the same. So it is the less than 1% that affects our color. So in terms of our brain composition, our body composition, our biological composition, whether you are white, you are Jewish, you are black, you are African, or you are Japanese, everything is the same. There is no difference. But it is just the less than 1% that changes the color of our skin. So, but racism is also a system of advantages or privileges, or a system of advantages and privileges. And this is where the issue of Black Lives Matter comes in. Like I said, we started from 1619 when Africans were brought here. Then they were enslaved for 400 years. And by the time slavery ended through the Emancipation Proclamation in 1865, so those who were enslaved gained their freedom, but freedom not without a price. So those who enslaved them were compensated. Some got $300, some got up to $1,000. But those who were freed were left on their own. And what happened afterwards? So they were left on their own, no education, no access to quality of healthcare services, no access to anything at all. And what did those who colonized or who enslaved them, what did they do? They now created a pipeline that also started establishing a prison system. And this prison system was designed in such a way that those slaves who had gained their freedom were pushed towards criminality in such a way, criminality in quotes, in such a way that they all, or mostly returned to the prison system. And who were the owners of this prison system? The slave masters. So eventually what happened was that those who ended up in the prison system also ended up in working in some of the plantations where they had been enslaved earlier on. And this cycle continues for several decades. And fast forward to the 21st century, why are people saying Black Lives Matter? Black Lives Matter because these privileges and advantages that the whites have enjoyed for several decades are still there. So they are still there. So the blacks African Americans and other blacks in the United States are still at a high disadvantage in terms of access to quality healthcare, in terms of access to education, in terms of access to every facet of good life. So, which is yeah.
Professor Adunbi, I know you want to continue so that you can give us a good finishing with that wonderful introduction. But please, I would like to go to Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale. I can see that you are online. Dr. Odebowale. Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale. Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, you are online. Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, I can see that you are online. Please unmute, do self-mute, and join us. You have muted yourself. Self-mute yourself so that you can join us. Because your presentation is next. Before we return to Professor Oyeshile and Professor Adunbi. Dr. Ademola Azeez, are you there? Are you ready?
Yes.
Dr. Ademola Azeez, please, you have the floor for 10 minutes, please.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Please.
Do I have the floor?
Yes,
thank you so much. Okay. Thank you so much. I want to sincerely appreciate the organization of this meeting. I want to welcome all the attendees and the panelists. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear
you.
You
hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Ademola.
Yes,
I want to look at.
Dr.
Okay.
Dr. hold on, please.
Ademola.
Dr. Odebowale. Yes, sir.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Oh, good. Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay.
Can we come back to you in 10 minutes? Dr. Ademola Azeez is already talking.
No problem.
Yes, thank you, sir. Yes. Dr. Azeez, please go on, please, sir.
Okay, thank you so much. I want to quickly look at the Black Lives Matter, looking at the variables here, the unwanted women of frustrated neighbors, especially racism. Let me define racism as the belief that groups of humans possess different behavioral traits corresponding to physical appearance and can be divided based on the superiority of one race over the other. That is prejudice. It means prejudice, discrimination, or antagonism directed against other people because they are of a different race or ethnicity. Well, we have seen this several times and several places, especially with the issue of George in the United States of America. But I want to make my discourse from the thesis espoused by Oyebola in 1976 in his book, The Dilemma of a Black Man. He captured the black race, number one, as the only race that has never made breakthrough in modernity. The second thesis was the race with over 20 million of its members transported physically as slaves to work for other races. And the third categorization of thesis, which is my interest, it refers to the race where the chiefs and the middle class gave support to the enslavement of its strong men. Now, today, I want to share what Professor Oyeshile mentioned when he was presenting. We saw bad governance, we saw crisis and instability, which has forced more Black people to travel into slavery abroad in search of greener pasture. We have seen our government irresponsive to the yearnings and the aspirations of citizens, and bad governance has continued to make Black men inferior to other races. I was looking at the emergence of Barack Obama, the first Black president in America in the year 2009, as a way of introducing a new dynamics into post-racial era and the white-Black relationship over the world. But unfortunately, the white supremacy did not allow that success to hold. They imposed I'm very sorry to use this word, an ethnic bigot, that is a chief proponent of racial discrimination on Americans by fueling the differences and jeopardizing any previous effort at integration. In spite of all anti-discrimination, anti-racism, anti-xenophobic laws, as well as program of action to combat racial discrimination by the United Nations since 1984 or so. It's an understatement that from Russia to Germany, from Denmark to Austria, from France to Britain, people of color are facing increasing trends in racism that has made life far more difficult and hazardous than for the average citizen in any of these countries. So it's an irony that instead of having somewhere to come back to, our own nation, the Black nation, has never been responsive to accommodating the people of color from anywhere. Two categories of people of color, that is, people who were original African Americans and those who traveled, who possibly went through the Mediterranean looking for greener pasture, to travel abroad looking for greener pasture. The homestead is not available to them for them to return. Let me give you this instance and look at a picture. According to the UK government's race disparity audit, relative to white and Asian, Black defendants at Crown Court were the most likely to be remanded in custody. Between 2017 and 2018, Black people in Britain were approximately 10 times more likely to be stopped and searched by the police than white men, and 3 times more than the Asian. The report equally gave the Black Caribbean pupils were permanently excluded at nearly 3 times the rate of which white British pupils, while Black people are more likely to be unemployed and homeless than all other racial minority groups. These are things that are obvious. The discrimination is obvious outside the continent of Africa, for example. But the unfortunate thing here is the continent of Africa is not receptive enough to accommodate their own. It's either they are sending them out by force, by struggle, or they make life miserable for those who live within. And that is my position from the thesis that the middle class and the chief gave support to the enslavement. We are encouraging people to go out to looking for greener pasture and then become enslaved to work for other races, and then there's nothing we are doing. There's this record in Denmark. There's this island. There's a tiny Ado-Ekiti island that Denmark decided to put on. They call them unwelcome foreigners. Quoting the immigration minister, he said they are unwanted in Denmark and they will feel that. They established an island for them where they keep those people that they are wanted, and they wanted them to feel that they are unwanted actually. And what do I bring out from this? When I look at 2 sets of people in conflict over scarce resources, the unwanted humans and the frustrated neighbors. Like Professor Oyeshile said, the concept of scarcity in economics, the wave of xenophobic or racist attacks mainly is undergirded by the belief that foreigners, mainly migrants from other countries, are to be blamed, for the social and economic woes of the host countries, especially poverty, unemployment that has ravaged most continents of the world. So any opportunity for them to be nationalistic in their approach, to be nationalistic in their orientation, to believe in themselves and their country, they will possibly be able to do. If you look at the xenophobic crisis in South Africa, in Ghana against Nigeria, it is because there's a conflict between the indigenous and the foreigners over scarce resources. No country of the world is enjoying free meal. Okay? There's no free meal anywhere, even in Africa. So by contention here is, even though the Black Lives Matter, what are the Black doing to be relevant in international politics, for example? What are the Black men doing among ourselves? Are we not killing ourselves? Look at X-Men crisis, look at Boko Haram, look at IPOD. IPOD is agitating to be part of this country, not because they are white, or not because Nigeria is white or they are black, but because of the kind of relationship that is existing between the black and the black among ourselves. So what do we expect? How do you expect others to treat us when we are not treating ourselves very well? The elite are ostracizing the poor. There's no program for the poor to survive in the country. And what do you have? Lottery visa. Lottery visa, they want people to come to Canada. There's no workforce in Canada. There's cheap labor in Africa. Let them come and work and become enslaved. Over time, after they have instituted this business and all that, they send them away or they keep them somewhere if they cannot go back to their homeland. I see this topic as the unwanted women are frustrated neighbors. They become frustrated because if they are not even enjoying their countries. The pandemic has ravaged everywhere in the world. The recession is almost everywhere. The GDP everywhere is collapsing. The Britain is looking inward. Look at what happened to Brexit. So everybody, every nation of the world is struggling over scarce resources. So who will now respect you when you move to their land and you want to dominate their land? Look at what happened this morning in Ghana. That some Nigerians from Nigeria are occupying a land that does not belong to them, claiming diplomatic security. This is uncalled for. What kind of behavior are we exercising when we get out of the country, even though we are unwanted? The consciousness, thank God for this season of Black Lives Matter. We're supposed to be conscious of the fact that whatever we fail to do, nobody will help us to do it. We look at what our government, if government are not doing it, what are we doing? What are critical challenges we are giving to government to do the right thing? What are we doing? Are we condemning, or are we criticizing for criticizing sake, or are we contributing our own quota, even at our various levels, to ensure things are done properly? These are some of my take as introduction.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. I appreciate. Before I go to Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, Dr. Odebowale, are you online? Let me say, I can see Babatunde Babalola, today Babalola from Cambridge. Thanks for joining us. We really appreciate it. Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, yes, please.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir. Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Yes, let me pay glowing tribute to the presentations made by Professor Adunbi, then Oyeshile, then of course the last speaker, Ademola Azeez. But I would like to look at this from a different perspective. The missing link, from the way I see it, is that we tend to deal with the problems that all of us know exist. These problems exist. These are the realities of our existence. Whatever we feel, whatever we expect from people, is not, all of these things are not going to go away. How do we combat this? How do we get out of this problem? How do we begin to even appreciate the fact that there's a problem? Because you see, there's a difference between knowing that you have a problem and of course you want to solve the problem, or trying to accommodate, trying to adapt to the same system that has kept you in perpetual servitude. I want to go into, Professor Adunbi said a lot, but let me go into ancient history, prehistory and ancient history. Whether we like it or not, before the evolution of societies, human beings moved in bands, hunting for fruits, gathering fruits, looking for what to survive. By the time sedentary lifestyle started, then competition was introduced. As competition was introduced, we now started to have classes. Those who, when the dietary pattern changed, those who were hunters acquired more powers and so on and so forth. I don't want to bore you with all these things that all of you know about. But the point at which we started to commoditize values, marked the point of regression to all of us, white, Hispanics, black, Japanese, anybody, Africans. It just appears that we have been the worst hit. And the solution to this problem, in my own little understanding, lies in education. Education, education, education. The ancient Egyptians, talking about classics now, were confronted with the challenges of existence. The inundation of Nile, made life difficult for them. At first, they were swimming in the realm of speculation, ascribing everything to one god or one goddess, everybody like that. From that, they moved to observation. From observation, they moved to science. And they were able to bequeath abiding legacies to the human race. When we had, our ancestors, by the time they started to live in societies, they confronted challenges. They observed new phenomena. And those challenges formed the basis upon which they built the capacity of those who live within several communities. What do we have today? We have certification and not education. Black Lives Matter. Yes, Professor Adunbi said it. Black women bleach their skin because of this deep-seated belief of inferiority complex. Our wives, our daughters, our children, they now use some chemicals to make them, they look funny. They want to look Chinese. All of these are the symptoms. But of course, education is key. What type of education are we giving our people that will even make them to begin to, to act differently? If you are not wanted, it may not be a sin. It happened among the Greeks. The Spartans did not pretend. They simply enslaved all those they conquered, and they refer to them as helots. Xenophobia, they did not pretend about it. The Spartans, they didn't. Athens pretended, but Athens promoted, slave trade. So we should know what is in our best interest and begin to design our curriculum to reflect the challenges we face as a people. Notice here, Auton, that was what Socrates said about, our journey towards self-actualization. Man, know thyself. Who are you? How can you begin to talk about being discriminated against, and you have this sense of entitlement? You speak, sanctimoniously, that you want to be treated when you mean nothing, you want nothing. Yeah, maybe the system conditioned you to be like that. Are you going to die like that? You quote people from the north, the epistemology of the north. What is happening to your own knowledge system that they destroyed consciously? I don't want to go into religion or ideology because people will begin to, they'll just label you. What is happening to your own knowledge system? Now you force feed your children with these nuggets of nonsense that the West keeps giving you, and you want to be treated differently. No, it's not going to happen. Has there been any civilization that was not predicated on culture? So what is your own culture? We talk about civilization. You are talking about an amalgam of several cultures. So what is your history? So until we are able to situate our current, predicament within the context of the overall experiences we have gathered over time, we are not going to go to anywhere. Why is it that we don't respect our own? What is our education? And what do we set to achieve? Is it certification to be called doctor, professor? Why is it that we are unable to even fix our roads, and Chinese are coming now, Japanese are coming? Why is it that our children are unable to plant what we eat? Why? Why is it that it is so difficult? We talk about what is good in past days, and of course, we won't talk about the Senate climb. What is saying about a place where you are sick, and of course you are just a mere statistic, and of course you cannot approach health facilities. What is saying about this? When you talk about values, if I mean, you want to point at people, dancing the gelede, is that your culture? Dancing at local dance and all of this, these are fine. But it's economy, and you cannot approach these serious problems from the standpoint of sentiments. They hate us. You hate yourselves. People say, oh, they are discriminating against. They discriminate against you when you have scarce resources and you have very many people chasing very few resources. Of course, you have conflict. And those who are not sufficiently educated, we want to play up ethnicity, nationalism, and all of these things that will not even solve any problem. We know what it is. When they want to share your money, they don't remember where they are from. Now your consciousness is foreign, and you are looking for solutions. You talk about Jesus Christ, you talk about Muhammad, you talk about all of these people. You said they died for me. I'm an Ijebu man, Remo. You said Jesus died for me. A person I will never know. I don't want to know. You say Muhammad, you say you are killing yourself over nonsense. Somebody mentioned Boko Haram. Do you even know what they are fighting for? Do you know what they are fighting for? Now we run a system in Nigeria, so funny system. Every governor, every senator, you just sit in Abuja and you share money. You are not building the capacity of your children. Your children can do nothing. You give them certificates. They are more confused now that they came to be graduates than when they enrolled in those schools. So what is your university doing? What is your curriculum? What are the challenges you face? Before you can be respected, you have to be a person of what? I regret to say that many of us don't present ourselves as those who deserve to be respected. I was in South Africa for some months. I saw what was going on there, but of course, I am not the one to begin to I mean, you can't preach to me about African unity. That has been my life. I don't believe in all these gerrymandering you call state, country, all of these things. But of course, unfortunately for us, our leaders are not endowed to even know what is their best interest. They just want to steal money and they put it in Swiss, Luxembourg, and all of these places, so that their children can be buying private jets. How can anybody own a private jet in an economy?
Dr. Odebowale.
Where is your fact? What are you doing? Yes, sir.
Yes, we'll come back to you. Thank you. We have like 2 minutes more, sir.
Oh,
thank you. You have 2 minutes more. Thank you.
So I'm just saying that, you see, we have these problems. Racism, we continue. It's not going to stop. Some people are so idiotic that, of course, what they see is different. When science has proved that monogenesis is a fact. Monogenesis, that every race emanated from a black race. That's a fact. I don't want to begin to indulge anybody who doesn't appreciate that, scientific reality in all of this. But okay, if Black lives must matter, the blacks must begin to do less of sagging, less of bleaching, less of hair braiding and all of this nonsense that people call entertainment, and of course the popular culture and all of this. You must educate your children in a way that will suggest that you want to move out of this cycle. Otherwise, you remain in perpetual servitude. Our education is not functional. I hold a PhD in classics and I'm a lawyer. The law we teach our children is a useless law. It's foreign. And you subject your home to what we call the repugnancy test. Yeah, your home becomes valid to the extent to be the imposed one. Admit. So you see, we have a lot to do. Education is the key. We must all go back to it. And the historians like Adunbi, Oyeshile, my friend, who is a philosopher, and I don't know Ademola Azeez, all of us who feel sufficiently concerned should begin to now, let us begin to think about the epistemology of the South. The epistemology of the North that we project. Aristotle said that, I quote, Aristotle this, and I know from classes that Aristotle did not write all the things as ascribed to him. He was the tutor to Alexander the Great, the son of Philip of Macedon. They went to Egypt and they destroyed things and they stole things there. All of this nonsense they ascribe to Aristotle. It's all fuck, it's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. It's all bullshit. So please, I thank you for having me, for giving me this time to talk. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We'll come back to you. Don't run away, sir. Yes. Yemi, are you still there? Yemisi, are you still there? Yemisi Ilesanmi. Yemisi Ilesanmi. Yemisi Ilesanmi, are you still there? Yes, Ilesanmi, yes, good. Yemisi, please. We have the floor. Yemisi Ilesanmi, self-mute. You need to self-mute yourself.
Okay, I've unmuted myself now.
Because,
yes,
I want you to come on board because Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale just said racism will not go away. And for people like you who are on the street fighting against racism, which you will not rest, you continue to be on the street. What is your opinion about that?
To be honest, thank you first for having me, and hello, and also special thank you to all the panel members. I must say that I am really, really surprised and really heartbroken to hear my fellow Black people blame their fellow Black people for racism. It's basically you blaming the victim for the offense and for the criminal offense, for the crimes of the oppressor. I mean, we need to have a good understanding of what racism means. You can be as educated as you want, you can be as rich as you want, you are still a Black man. I have people talking about education and all that. There are many educated people in UK, in Africa, in America. It has nothing. It doesn't own any. It doesn't stop you people being racist towards you. So you have to understand what itself is racism. I think it's also sad to hear people talking about, oh, what has Black Africans or Blacks in America, what have they done for themselves? They've done a lot, for goodness sake. I would be insulted if I was a Black American right now hearing fellow Africans saying that. I mean, those are people who suffered 400 years of slavery. They were carted away, forced as human beings from their home motherland, taken to a strange country, made, enslaved in brutal conditions, in appalling conditions, where you cannot even begin to imagine. Conditions where people were lynched if they tried to escape, where people were hanged from the tree just to deter others, where women had their bellies open, pregnant women had their bellies open as a deterrent to others. Those are harsh conditions, harsh realities. They are harsh realities of people. They went through this. They fought for their freedom. You don't think that slave trade was just abolished like that, were you? It wasn't. People fought for their freedom. People died. People survived in unimaginable conditions that you cannot imagine now. And they fought their freedom. And slavery was only abolished because it became quiet at a point, not that profitable anymore. But people fought for it. People fought for their liberation. And after 400 years of slavery, they even tried to build. Have you ever heard of the issue of Tulsa? Tulsa was a Black community that was built 50 years. Black people tried to build that community, it became wealthy. What did the white people do? They went there and burnt it down. Now, those are people who have tried and risen from all the economic disparities. Somebody said it already, one of the panelists, that they were given nothing after free. They were set on the streets to say, okay, go, you are now free. What, without education, without economic disparity that is there, and already in a system that sees them as inferior because of their skin color, and you expect them magically to just be as equal? It takes more than just proclamation to be an equal person in the society. Now you have economic disparity, then you have what we call redlining, where people where essential services were denied to the areas where you have Black people. And then you also have like issues like where the prisons that were built as a sort of another slave trade thing, because they were looking at things like just wandering the streets could get you arrested. And when you're arrested, they put you in there, no money for any, you're a Black man, you don't have money for any legal representation. Then the big businesses now take laborers from the prison to work for peanuts in their organizations, in their businesses, on their land. That was another form of slavery, and that form is actually still going on because we have Black people being incarcerated at very high rates. Now, when we talk about racism, it is not about just, you're Black, you should stay in your country and talk of corruption. Look, corruption is another thing entirely. They have problems. We can multitask. We can fight racism, we can fight corruption, we can talk about internalized racism. And now when we talk about, oh, people hating themselves, that is still not a reason for the white man to treat you as if you are beneath them. It doesn't matter whether you stay in Nigeria or you stay in America. When you are viewed, when your skin is viewed as being inferior to others, okay? I think my voice is too loud. So when your skin, I can't use the mic. Yeah. When your skin is viewed as being inferior to others, you are deemed as inferior. So you have to look at racism from that point of view, not just from, oh, you should stay in your country and all that. I am educated, I live in UK, but I understand that because of my skin color, there are barriers I will face. No matter how much I have a master's degree in law, it's still not going to make people look at me, or unless I have to fight for it. I have to point attention to their discriminations. You know, we have the Human Rights Charter that says nobody should be discriminated against based on their race, skin color, religion, and all that. That is a charter that countries have signed up to, that civilized countries have signed up to. You need to hold them responsible for that. You need to hold them accountable for that. We are not saying it will go away just because people signed agreement, but you have to understand that we need to demand that we be seen as the humans that we are. Now you have to, when you're talking about racism, please, you need to know about systemic racism. You need to know about institutionalized racism. It's not a matter of, oh, a white man kicked my leg the other time, or a black man kicked my leg because of my skin color. No, that systemic racism, institutionalized racism is about a structure that was built to make one race appear on the top, and then the dark race, the black people, are right on the ground at the bottom of the ladder, and then the lighter your skin, that is how you climb the ladder, with the white man be on top. We didn't create that structure. The oppressor state. Now we are saying we want to, because by that structure, then there are things, what we call white privileges, that you gain from being on top of the structure. It doesn't matter whether your forefathers were slave owners or not. The thing is, you still benefit from that structure that was created. And that is what we call white privileges. And that is what we are telling people to understand, that in this day and age, we cannot have that. We cannot just close our eyes to some privileges that you enjoy, like the fact that I, as a black person, can be stopped and searched on the road just like that without any reason, whereas a white person wouldn't be subjected to such things. I can enter a store and people look at me differently or suspiciously, and then if I hear what my black man says, response to that is go back to your home. That is wrong. That is not how to fight racism. And also, we talk about internalized racism, where, of course, you see, we have to talk about colonization and the effect on our people. It's not just about slave trade. When they came to Nigeria, when they came to loot Africa, we were our home people. But the idea of them looting, coming to Africa, making you feel inferior, making our forefathers feel inferior, imposing their own culture, telling us, brainwashing us to abandon our own culture and to assimilate into their own society, their own ways of things. All this the way they indirect rule to try to divide and rule us in their own way. Those are assertions of power from them, and it's been many years, and people have assimilated that, thinking that yes, this is a superior culture. That is why you have people spelling their name Adeoye or Adefemi as in an anglicized manner on social media. I mean, that is so irritating. What is your name? Adeayo, and they start H-A-R-D. What is H-A-R-D? It's ridiculous. You know, that is internalized racism for you. And there was an experiment that was actually performed by Jane Elliott, where she had white people, on white children, when she said, oh, you, the blue eyes and the brown eyes aside, and she convinced them over weeks that the blue eyes are superior and the brown eyes are inferior. And within a few days, she saw that the brown eyes started underperforming and the blue eyes started asserting and doing better. Then she switched it again and said, you know what, the brown eyes are actually the better race and the blue eyes are, then the brown eyes also started performing well. So when you have told people over years, over time, that they are inferior, that they are not good enough, then they start underperforming. That is what it is. But if we also give them that opportunity, we need to really look at our mindset and say that and try to, to try to build our confidence again to say we can be it. But the thing is, when people talk about migrants, good migrants, bad migrants, we are all human beings. If a white person is not judged by how much they earn or how educated they are before they are given human rights, why should a black person be judged like that? Because I've seen people talking about, what good have the black man done? They are looting this, they are looting. When you make peaceful resolution impossible, you make violent revolution, necessary for people. So the thing is, it's not about how bad we are or how much it's not about black on black crime. We are talking about police brutality that is targeted at black people. So we can talk about corruption and other things, but if we are saying all lives matter, now when people say all lives matter, the reason for black lives, we are not saying all lives don't matter, but the truth is right now, all lives do not matter because black people are being treated unequally. They are being brutalized. That is the word, Black Lives Matter. That is what it means. And I'll give you an example. Now, if your house is on fire and the firefighters come, you don't sit down and say, oh, all houses are equal, therefore you must spray all houses. No, we target the water fountain on the house that is on fire. And it's the same way if we say, oh, breast cancer, let's donate to breast cancer research. You don't come out and say all cancers matter. We focus on that one. So I think people who try and interject and say all lives matter, they have been racist in themselves. It's because you have to organize that. This is the life that is being targeted right now. Black lives are the ones that are endangered. They are the ones that people are putting that news on. They are the ones that police are targeting. They are the ones that are being denied opportunities. So yes, we have to make their lives matter. When they said all lives matter, it's like the animal kingdom, where they say animal farm, where they say all animals are equal, but some are more equal than the others. So we have to understand that right now, animals, we are not the same. We cannot accept all lives matter where we don't matter. So we are bringing out that part that we must matter. We matter and we are asserting it. So that is what Black Lives Matter is about. And
yeah. Hello. We'll come back to you here, Missy. Please.
Okay.
Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti. Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti. Dr. Adaora.
Yeah.
Dr. Adaora. Good. Most of our panelists, yes, I can hear you, sir. I can hear you, ma'am. Most of our panelists have discussed racism from business perspective. And believe me, Yemisi Ilesanmi, who has been on the field, was really moved at the idea that the migrants were blamed for some of the crises that happened to the blacks in America and Europe. Now, but then we have some cases of blacks, even in Africa, who have been attacked for one reason or the other within the African continent. So I ask you, Dr. Adaora, what's your own opinion is the synergy between the hatred against the black in America, Europe, and the blacks in places like South Africa and other blacks in other parts of Africa where they've been unwanted kind of?
Thank you so much, Dr. Ademola. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me, please?
Can hear you loud and clear. Yes,
okay, thank you. Loud and clear. Yeah. Yes. Thank you, Dr. Ademola, for having me. I appreciate you for organizing this webinar. I must say that the topic is very timely. I thank all my co-panelists. They've really done a good job. When we talk about the issue of all lives matter, I just want to take it up from where Mrs. Yemisi stopped. I actually agree with her. For now, our house is on fire, and we must just have to focus on it. But beyond that, we must have to look at racism or xenophobia holistically. As an international relations expert, you must know that there's a theory we call the theory of realism. It's a power struggle. So racism, as a matter of fact, can be seen in the context of power struggle. the dominant group, the subordinate. There are people that are already on top. They struggle to make sure that the subordinate are kept to where they belong, in quote, down the ladder. Scholars also believe, and I agree with them, that capitalism also fits racism. The exploitation of the subordinate. We look at the existence of inequality. Also, you also have to look at the belief in racial superiority. It is a major issue that we have to look at when we talk about racism. And that is why the Black people have continued to struggle. It has been a life of struggle for Blacks in many parts of the world. I'm sure you heard recently, even in China, Africans were being maltreated. They've been struggling to breathe. In fact, that is the slogan today, I can't breathe. You see, racism is not just about the violent part that we are seeing today. We have the subtle part of it. I must tell you, for instance, January this year, New York Times published a research titled, "How Much Racism Do We Face Today?" And they did that just to find out how pervasive racism is in this 21st century. A team of researchers tracked the experiences of 101 Black teenagers in Washington, D.C. for over 2 weeks. And the study included so many expressions of racial bias, 58 in all. And they asked participants to record them daily. You know what their findings were? 101 Black teens that participated in that study reported more than 5,600 experiences of racial discrimination over 2 weeks. And that boils down to an average of more than 5 instances per day for each teenager. And that's more than 70 for each person for over 2 weeks. So the findings, I'm sure, for those that have been experiencing it, it may not be surprising. But to us, it reflects a high frequency of racism. And it comes in different forms. It could be what we call microaggression. It could also be extreme form that we are seeing today in the aspect of killing an unarmed black man, that is George Floyd, and many others before him. It could be racial insult. I'm sure you must have heard Black Devil. You know, the Blacks are actually associated with the devil. And you know what that means in Nigeria. When you are associated with the devil, it means that you have to be eliminated. In fact, many churches in Nigeria, you know, they have to bind and cast away the devil. Some churches also, I do not want to call names, they actually pray that the devil has to die. In fact, you must die. But apart from that, what we have today, I must tell you the truth, there are progress when you talk about racism and the fight for racial equality. We've made progress. If you see the protests in the United States today, it is not just the Blacks. The young ones, the whites are also supporting. But we have what we call white supremacists. They are mostly among the elderly. They do not want to connect with the Blacks at all. They have what we call deep hatred for Blacks. And it has been sown in their minds. I'll give you an example. Years back, in northern Idaho, a white supremacist by name Richard Butler, he died in 2004. He ran a Christian identity church whose members were preparing for a racial Armageddon, an apocalyptic final struggle between whites on behalf of God and Blacks on behalf of Satan. You know, from his pulpit, Butler preached that the Bible is the family history of the white race. He was one of those whites that said that white intermarriage with Blacks or even Jews will result in mulatto zombies. Although he's dead, the world he left behind continues without him. So racism has continued in a very subtle way many times. And it's not uniform. It is chameleonic. And it's important for us to know that racism is not what one is born with. It's just societal construction. I actually don't feel comfortable when they say whites and black, white American, black American. Why not Americans? I told them it's a misnomer because we can't say Igbo Nigerians, Yoruba Nigerians, and all that. Today you see protesters asking for justice on the streets, and we are all joining them. This is an aspect I want to talk about. We want reform. We want police reform. I tell you, I don't get moved by these laws that are put on paper, but lacks practicality. Documents that have been signed before, how far have they been able to take care of this? Documents signed that ended slavery did not bring slavery to an end. We still have it today. They call it the model forms. They've baptized it. The 13th Amendment to the US Constitution did not, as of 1865, when that amendment came. The United Nations Human Rights Declaration. Just continue all those documents. We have to look deep and know where this thing is coming from. We have to go back to the home, the schools, media, the agents of socialization. Today, racism are increasingly found in the media, and that is what scholars call cyber racism. In fact, it was Tim Berners, the inventor of the World Wide Web, that said humanity connected by technology on the web is functioning in a dystopian way. Internet is being used as a powerful tool today to influence divisive ideas. So the fact that when we talk about racism, there are many causes to it. I wasn't actually comfortable. I cannot remember who said, when somebody was saying it is the body breaching. We breach our body because we want to be like, well, that's what is causing racism. In fact, I don't even know. I was so uncomfortable with that. No, it's not it. You come to South Africa, for instance. Okay, ma, not sir. Yes, thank you. So when you look at the issue of South Africa, I do not want to talk about the fact that it's economic scarcity. The Dr. Azeez talked, no. When you look deeper, you see that xenophobic attacks are fueled by political scapegoating. Political leaders and officials blame foreigners for their own systemic failures to deliver on political promises. These are foreigners that are investing and contributing to the economy. Most of them establish the businesses on their own, not the government. And how would driving them away give their own citizens job? If the citizens are not there to work or establish their own, it will still not solve the problem. So it is disheartening to see that such is happening among us. But I must also say that there's an aspect I would not agree with Mrs. Yemisi. There's an aspect that we have to look at. We have our own issues too. We have to look at ourselves. The way we present ourselves matters. For instance, since this issue of protest started, Nigeria has not even made any statement, especially a strong one on it. And people are saying, maybe because we do not even respect human rights. But most importantly, if you look at it, let's get back to the good books. He said, if we have to, actually before there's a part that said, he who is without sin should cast the first stone. I do not know the chapter and the verse in the Bible, but Dr. Azeez will help me with it. There's another statement that said, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands. For many years, let me just finish the sentence. For many years, Amnesty International has been calling government to bring some perpetrators of crime to book in Nigeria, but nothing is happening. So let me say this. Mostly, let me just summarize. We have what we call, it's not about unwanted humans or frustrated neighbors alone. We also have what we call politically motivated racism. We have our own side that we have to deal with. And Nigeria also has, because for instance, we look at it, our foreign policy is in a suspended animation, if I want to use Professor Oyebode's word. Thank you. I think I'll come back later.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Thank you so much, Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti. Before I go to Professor Omolade and Professor Oyeshile, I would like to take this matter straight to Babatunde Oluajo, OSB Sankara. Babatunde, are you online, sir? OSB Sankara, are you there? Babatunde Oluajo.
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Fantastic. Now, I will just listen to
I'm
Dr.
here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Hello?
you. We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you. We can hear you. Hello? Where's Miss Sankara? We can hear you.
Go on, please.
Yeah, good. And now, Dr. Adaora just... Oh, good. Dr. Adaora just made a charge and said that the civil rights activists in Nigeria have not joined their colleagues all over the world in protesting against the attacks on blacks all over the world, most especially in America. What's your opinion on this? And what exactly is your view on Black Lives Matter?
Well, thank you very much. Let me start by thanking those who spoke before me. One of the challenges that when you have to speak last, if you are not careful, you end up repeating what everyone has said. But be that as it may, I will just start by saying that in Nigeria, I simply think the human rights community are doing a lot. If you say whether it's enough, that's a different matter. But if you say the point is that we should not say they are not doing. I mean, since the time of the Chibok girls, we have had people almost on a weekly basis going to protest. And even since the current phase of the Black Lives Matter started in the US, we have had people all over the country, including Lagos, not only talking about the life in America, but equally talking about the various killings that is going on in Nigeria. So I think the human rights community in Nigeria has not rested on his words, has been doing his best. But what I think the community needs to do is to galvanize a wider layer of Nigerians to be involved in protesting not only the killings in America, but the killings in our own backyard here. Now coming back to Black Lives Matter, I simply think Black Lives Matter, but there's a number of challenges, and I think one of the biggest attacks that the Black race has suffered is the destruction of our history, our culture, as well as our way of life. Because as they say, the greatest weapon in the hand of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. Today, how many black kids know about the contribution of the Black race to human civilization? The impression is given in the books we read, in the type of education we are given, that blacks are just consumers of the product of civilization. But we know that for a fact that this is a lie. This is a fallacy. Beginning from the great civilization in Egypt to the various civilizations that even Olatunji was able to identify in his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. We know that the black man is not just a consumer, but a major contributor. We have had wonderful black inventors, scientists. We have even had black popes. And at a point in the Iberian Peninsula, the Moors were like a respected class in that part of the world. We are talking about blacks. So I think we need to do something about black history. Unlike maybe in places like America, they say, well, 1 month black history. So if you do 1 month black history, you do 11 month white history. So by the time, at the end of the day, you forget your black history, you only remember the white one you have been taught. So I simply think we need to do something about this one. I think that was the point Dr. Doyin was mentioning about education. He was not just talking about, Western education. He's talking about that cultural education that will make the black man know his place in the global scheme of things. I think that is very important for me. And I want to equally thank the first set of speakers, because they identify some very critical things which is important to me. And that is, Professor Oyeshile mentioned scarcity of resources. And I think Professor Lade Adunbi equally mentioned the system of advantages and privileges. And I think Dr. Doyin too mentioned competition, while Dr. Adaora equally mentioned mentioned inequality. For me, my position is that racism is fueled by the system we run currently, which is capitalism. Because if you talk about scarcity of resources, you are talking about capitalism. If you talk about a system of advantages and privileges, it's capitalism. If you talk of a system of competition and inequality, it's capitalism. Because the question we should ask ourselves, is it that there is not enough resources to meet human needs? There is more than enough to meet human needs. The challenge is that we don't have enough to meet human greed. And since capitalism is a system of greed, it is inevitable that you are going to have a situation where a set of humanity, or even majority of humanity, they are concerned into a state of want. They are concerned into a situation where they have to compete for resources because a small percentage of humanity has cornered a vast majority. Today, look at Oxfam report on inequality in the world, and you'll be shocked at about what 1% of humanity controls in terms of the resources of the earth. So in such a situation, it is inevitable that there will be competition. And if there's competition, you start to see the man that does not look like you as the problem. Even if you look at, let us look at the history of the Jews. Second World War, in Germany and other parts of Europe, they were made to look like the problem because there was a situation of scarcity. There was competition for limited resources. So what did Hitler do? They painted the Jews as a problem, and then and that's how the pogrom started. So it is the same thing everywhere in the world. And I like the fact that Dr. Adaora mentioned the case in South Africa. What happened in South Africa? The failure of the ANC to make good its promises to the blacks. I mean, turn the blacks into a situation where they start to see other blacks as their problem. Meanwhile, the black was not their problem. It is the inability to meet the promises made, of meeting the basic necessities of the average black South African that made them start to see the other black man who is not from South Africa as their problem. So until we get to the root of the issue, which is that we must engineer society.
Thank you. Thank you, Uwezu Sankara. I really appreciate that. Professor Omolade Adunbi, I will come back to you because you are about to conclude your presentation before I stop you. And I'll go to Professor Oyeshile for his own reaction because he wanted to react to some. I saw him writing some things down. He wanted to react. After that, questions and contribution from the participants, from the attendees. So for now, Professor Omolade Adunbi, you have another 10 minutes, please. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks to everyone for the brilliant presentations. Let me start with what Dr. Adaora said about bleaching. I didn't say bleaching is racism. I said that internal racism will suggest that when people begin to think that others are superior to them, then they begin to imbibe certain practices that they see in that other that they think are superior to them. And that is what results in people bleaching their skin because they see white skin as desirable. So that is my point about that. A few points that I also wanted to make before I ended previously is the correlation between ethnicity and racism. So it's the connection between ethnicity and racism. And I was going to apply the same logic of racism to the logic of ethnicity. And what do I mean by this? When we look at the Nigerian situation, for example, we often, in many respects, think that either the Fulanis are our problem, or the Igbos are our problem, or the Yorubas are our problem. So, and that is exactly the way racism functions, because racism picks and chooses who are the winners and who are the losers. So, but just like Oluajo ended, that is not actually the problem of Nigeria is not about whether it is the Fulanis or the Hausas or the Yorubas, Igbos, Ijos, or all the other ethnic groups. So the problem of Nigeria is about, one, the erosion of the state, and second is the prevalence of neoliberal practices that takes resources away from the majority and give to the minority. And when I say minority here, not in terms of ethnicity, but minority in terms of the elite, those who are in position of power. So now, when those who are in position of power, when they accumulate all the resources that should go to everyone, then they begin to pick and choose. And they begin to pick and choose in terms of who wins and who loses. And what do I mean by this? Basically, it means that the elite will form a coalition against the people. And forming a coalition against the people means continuing to enjoy the resources of the Commonwealth at the expense of the majority of the population. So rather than seeing the elite who are enjoying these resources as the problem, we begin to see ourselves. We begin to see ourselves as the problem. So we begin to antagonize the Fulanis or the Hausas or the Yorubas or the Igbos or those who do not look like us. Then there's another point that I would like to make about Black Lives Matter and how it connects to the Nigerian situation or the African situation is the history of policing itself. So if we look at the history of policing in the United States and the history of policing in many African countries, you know, these are what you call slave and colonial legacies. So police in the United States, particularly in the South, started as slave patrols. They were not known as the police in those days. They were known as slave patrols, and they were trained to always shoot whoever is trying to escape from slavery. So up till this moment, that legacy still continues, which is why we see a lot of police target Black people here. Then the second, then the connection to Africa that I see here is the historical legacy of colonialism. So we still have colonial police. We still have colonial police, even though we won independence in 1960 and many African countries won independence, but we have not carried out any systematic reform of the police force in many African countries. So they still continue with that colonial legacy, which is why they always see the people as their enemy. And police are supposed to protect the people, but when police are trained to see the people as their enemy, it results in police brutality and gross violations of human rights. And that is what you see in the United States, and that is what you also see in many African countries.
Your final thought.
Sorry? It's my time?
Yes, final thought. No. Your thought now, just 1 minute. You have 2 minutes more.
Oh, okay. I have a lot to talk about, but I was gonna quickly talk about redlining, which Yemisi Ilesanmi mentioned earlier on. And redlining basically means the ways in which institutional racism works here, which works, it's at the disadvantage of a lot of Black majority. Like she said, Tulsa, Oklahoma used to be the Black Wall Street. And 100 years ago, what happened? White supremacists went there and burned the entire town down. And that was a loss of wealth, millions of dollars lost in that. And that in itself is tied to the idea of systemic or institutional racism, which I touched on earlier on. So maybe if there is time again, I can come back to several other things that I would love to talk about here.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oluajo, Babatunde, Professor Oyeshile, I will come to you. But Oluajo has like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to conclude. And there's something I really wanted to say that I thought it was true, but I never knew that it was the network. So Babatunde, I'm really sorry. You have like 3 minutes to end, please. Hello? Yes, please. You have the floor.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Yemi. I thought it was a conspiracy of the academics. Yes, I said thank you. I thought it was a conspiracy of the academics against me. I just want to go back a bit into restoring the pride of the Black man. Because for me, I think this is fundamental. Because beyond the destruction and the stealing and the looting of knowledge, just like Dr. Odebowale referred to, I mean, what happened in Egypt and all the rest, in the current milieu, we still have the agents and the structures of capitalism that are leading the same attack on the black man. IMF World Bank is one. For those for many of us will remember, in the Babangida era, the 120 million loan to the university system, one of the conditionalities is the dropping of subjects like history and other humanities. What more damage can you do to a people's history, a people's way of life, a people's culture? So I simply think, as part of the process of, pushing back, we must insist that the African history, the history of the black man must be taught to him. And all effort by institutions like IMF World Bank telling African countries to drop their history, to drop the study of humanities. I think in the academia, we should play a leading role to push back on the implementation of such backward policies. That has gone a long way to make the African man, the black man, lose his own pride. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really. Professor Oyeshile, I'm coming back to you now. And believe me, Babatunde Oluajo touched a very good point. And that's the fact that humanities is being pushed out for being somehow irrelevant. Professor Olatunji Oyeshile, please, you have the floor for your response to some of the issues raised.
Yeah. Have you unmuted me?
Yes.
Have you unmuted me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
I want to thank the panel for the wonderful contributions. But I want to clarify certain things. One, no matter the economic model you adopt, whether capitalism, socialism, whatever, scarcity is a fact. Scarcity of resources is a fundamental feature of any human society. The issue is how that scarcity is managed. In Africa, we have not done so well in that regard. Two, there is need for indigenous knowledge. We must learn to look inward because we cannot continue to outsource everything about us. We have lost our language. We have lost our religion. There is nothing a black man does now without looking up to the white. In such a way, you cannot have an authentic development. And they will always treat you as a second-class citizen. Now, there is need for mental decolonization. If there is mental decolonization, we may be very slow, but we will know that we are on the right path. Look at the names we bear. Look at the kind of dress we wear. Look at the medicine. Even this COVID-19, there were certain drugs developed in Africa that were shoved aside. And we are still looking for solution. But one medicine was discovered in the UK. The government of most African countries were very eager to adopt such medicine. So it means that we don't really believe in ourselves. And if you don't believe in yourself, you cannot command the respect of the outsider. Of course, there's eclecticism. We have to borrow from others. But we must also assert ourselves. It is very easy for us to talk about how Europe underdeveloped Africa after 200 years. We are not talking about how Africans have underdeveloped Africa. It is when we address that question that we can really move forward. Now, I have some major solutions. One, we can only restore the dignity of the black person when we have the right type of governance in Africa. Because the Europeans leverage on the fact that we don't have anywhere to go. Let me give you one example, and I'm not being modest. I was in the Netherlands for 4 months last year. And after my research, people were appealing to me to stay back. I said, no, I have to go back to my country. And that earned me a lot of respect. I'm not saying people should not go and work in foreign land. But when they know that you have a place to go, you earn more respect because this Black Lives Matter revolve on dignity. So how do we ensure that dignity? So one, we must have proper governance. most of the grants we get come from foreign countries. Why is it that African countries cannot give grants so that we can research on indigenous problems? That is one. Two, Black must also uphold certain integrity. Go all over the world. You go outside the country, you are afraid to mix with the Black person. Why? Because before you know it, you are associated with fraud. People are afraid. Why is that the case? Is that a way of ensuring reparation? Do you ensure reparation through fraudulent practices? I'm not saying all Blacks are fraudulent. In fact, they are very honorable people. But what I'm saying is that they are painted particular because somebody is desperate to get to Europe through the Atlantic Ocean, who doesn't mind dying. At times the ship is traveling, about how those people are dead, others manage to survive. Tell me about that person. Those who have survived, they'll be ready to do anything to stay alive. That's why we need to put in order our home environment. Now, believe in ourselves. Do we really believe in ourselves? That's a fundamental philosophical question. So until we start believing ourselves that we can do it, that we don't need to wait for the white person. If a white man travels to this place, we accord him so much respect. But if the same Black man is coming from Europe, nobody bothers to go and collect him from the airport. So we have to look inward. So taking it for granted that it's a life of competition, we must look inward, develop indigenous epistemology, ensure proper governance, reduce poverty. Let people have that belief in their own country. If we are stabilized there, the tendency to outsource everything will be reduced. That's my contribution for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Dr. Ademola Azeez. Dr. Ademola Azeez. You have the floor. You want to respond?
You conclude.
Dr. Ademola Azeez, you have the floor for.
Yes. I'm on.
Yes. You want to respond to one or two things? Yes, we can hear you.
Let me quickly say this, like following Professor Oyeshile, I think we are sharing the same view. Let me start with a question. Who are we as a people? The problem of identity, somebody mentioned it. Have we been able to identify who we are? I was privileged to be in the US some time ago, and some of my colleagues, like Prof, experience. Why don't you just stay? And I looked at Washington, D.C. I saw where Black men were living around Washington. There was a gap between the white-dominated area, the Hispanic, and then the Black community. A place where I am not recognized. I have integrity. I am proudly African. Do we understand who we are? We are strong, we are agile, and yet we want to use that agility and the strength to work for somebody to build their economy, to build their own life at the expense of our own destiny. We have our culture. We have our culture. In Africa, you don't bow just anyhow for anybody. I don't know if everybody here is Yoruba. I have integrity. I have a personality. I don't have to be a billionaire. I don't have to be the richest person around. I don't have to be the wisest person around. But whoever I am, I want to establish my presence. I want the world to know that I existed at a particular point in time. I'm not a slave. If our forefathers had been slaves, if they were taken away as slaves to go and work on plantation and all that, what are we doing today? Yet we want to struggle with a visa lottery to go to Canada, to go to US. If I'm privileged to visit America, I don't want to visit and contribute my quota to America. I don't want to be a slave in America. There's a problem with our identity. There's a problem with who we are. The culture of communalism that is associated with our indigenous life. We have abandoned it. Everybody wants to be American. Everybody wants to be like white. Everybody. go to the European, any holiday you want to go to American resort, you want to visit everywhere. We are lagging behind it. Look at what I said concerning the thesis of Adeola Olofintuade. He said the black race is seen as the only race that has never made breakthrough in modernity. What effort are we making into modernity? That people will aspire to be with us. They want to come and see what we are doing. They want to come and borrow from us. Are we doing anything? The majority of our rich black in America, do they even bother to trace their origin? Just Floyd, I realized they were making sacrifices in Dahomey. Was there any time they realized they were from Dahomey? If not for this, the death, the killing, and then the white life matter. My life matters, not because anybody will give me my life. No, nobody will have to tell me whether my life matters. I know my life matters. I must be able to exercise it. I almost lost an opportunity at the program in the US. When they had me to make comments and make remarks, I said, my comment here is possibly not beneficial enough, because I don't even see recognition to my country, even to Africa as a continent, talk less of Nigeria as a nation. And yet, you want me to come and just sit down and then be enjoying tip and then enjoying cook or whatever. I am African. I am African. I'm African. My life matters. And I must be able to establish what makes me stronger, what makes me matter, even to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti.
Can you hear me, please?
Yes, we are here.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ademola. Just our final words. I must say that racism cannot go away in just one day. In fact, it has been with us for some time now. Yes, it is true we may not be able to stop all expressions of racism or xenophobic violence in one day. But it is important that if we must make any gain, we must have to stand up to condemn evil. Race matters. Race matters, just as Black lives matter. And I also said, even though our house is on fire now, let us also realize that all lives matter. That is actually the main reason for the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948. But for us to make progress, it's important that we look at some aspects. First one, let us look at, as Africans, what we call Black rage. It is this violent, uncontrollable anger by Blacks. For most of us that have been in the United States, the way the Blacks act is so different. I'm not saying it should be an excuse for racism, but it's important that we look at ourselves, how we present ourselves. I'll give you an example. There's this video, you must have seen it on the social media. You know, this video, a policeman just stopped a young American guy, and then he pulled over and he walked up to him. And when he walked up to him, he asked him, you know, the Western police, they are polite, but sometimes they can also give polite insults. So he walked up to him and said, sir, do you know why I stopped you? He said, no, I'm not very sure, officer. And the police said, initially I stopped you for speeding. But when I walked up to your car, I just noticed you're wearing a mask. And he asked the guy, do you always wear your mask with your nose sticking out over the mask like that? And the young guy said, yes, because it's a kind of hard to breathe. You know what the white policeman said? He said, really, hard to breathe. And he said to him, let me ask you a question. Are you a special kind of stupid or just an asshole? Why am I saying this? This is a white guy. He never said anything. He didn't even respond. And the policeman dipped his hand in his pocket and said, I'm going to give you 2 tickets. One for overspeeding. The second one is for constituting a public nuisance. It's not just for stupidity. You are just an asshole. Have a nice day. And I sent this to my husband in the US, to my brother that I've stayed for almost 20 years. And he said, do I know that if he's a black guy, hell will let loose? And maybe it would have been the same kind of thing we are talking about George Floyd, because they will not, he told me, he said, first thing the black will say, who the hell are you? They will not take it. But this guy never opened his mouth. I'm not saying that the police did well, but I can tell you the whites, they are also calling for reform. They face some issues too with the police. It's not just about the blacks. Also, we must coordinate ourselves well. In Africa, when we face xenophobic attack, it is important that we remember history. Let us go back and see the struggles. Pan-Africanism. It is so disheartening that these days we have generations that do not remember all this. In South Africa, even in Sudan today, they are targeting migrants and refugees. So the Pan-African struggle today, African Union is saying the Africa we want. It is what we want, to treat ourselves this way. Today, we are still talking about the recent bulldozing of the High Commission, even though we do not know the politics that are being played there, but they are all part of it. You get to even Ghana, many of our businessmen, they are facing a whole lot in our own soil. So it's important that we have to coordinate ourselves well and also remember all the struggles of our leaders to make sure that we'll come together in solidarity. So lastly, I say, it is not just the government that we have to focus on. Individuals from home, families, agents of socialization. People should know that racism is not, we are not born with it. It is something that is learned. And it's important that we stand together to fight it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, are you still online? Dr. Odebowale? Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, are you still online? Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, if you're online, self-mute. You have like 3-5 minutes to. Yes, sir. You want to react to any of the submissions?
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to be brief. You see, I would not want us to, to miss the point. I never said that blacks are not victims. I never said that blacks are not being victimized. But I also said that there's a need for us to introspect. Introspection is important. It is very important. We cannot continue to live in self-denial. I was in South Africa, 2014, 2015, 2016. I was in South Africa. As if I were a black South African living in Venda or Polokwane, I will kill Nigerians who go to the homeland to pick my sisters, introduce them to drugs, bring them to Johannesburg or to Pretoria or to Cape Town, use them as prostitutes. They don't give them anything. Then when they get hooked, you give them overdose, you kill them. I'll kill all of Nigerians. I'm saying that I witnessed it. Let us introspect. I know that we have a problem. Okay, maybe some things may be responsible for it. I was in South Africa. Nigerians are drugs on the streets. Go to Sunnyside in Pretoria. Go to Johannesburg. Go to Soweto. Go to Durban. So nobody will excuse that. So you don't hurt the sensibilities of your host. Let us be truthful. Let us be truthful. I will not accept that. Then on bleaching, it takes a mad person to remove the conified layer of your skin, because you begin that is your own perception of beauty. I know a little about fashion and beautification. It is the idea of deep-seated belief of inferiority, complex blame the whites for it. I'm saying that education should bring you out of it. They're talking about migrations over time. People migrate for economic reasons. There may be war, there may be pestilence. It will continue for as long as we have the human race. But why are we discriminated against? Babatunde Oluajo said something about, okay, people treat us as if we have not contributed anything to civilization. I think it is part of the ill education. It's a conscious design to show our children, to teach them that we are nothing. I'm talking about that there is a need for us to shift from the epistemology of the North. You quote Aristotle, you quote Socrates, you quote all of these people. You leave your problems. Our problems is that of capacity. Chinese cannot be coming to build our roads for us. They can't be coming to build our hospitals for us. It's a sign of failure. And if you sell drugs, if they kill you, manage it. Manage it. It's not about this, about Black Lives Matter. No, it's about capacity. Build it. Teach your children. You don't force feed them on these nuggets of confusion that those who want to keep you in perpetual servitude have ensured that they perfected, and you are continuing with it. You teach your children, hey for apple. The apple they see is the foreign apple. B for basket. The basket they see is the one they used to carry Moses to to hide him in the river. You speak English with ease, and you measure intelligence in terms of how proficient a person is in the understanding of a language. Foreign language. I'm a lawyer, I'm telling you that the law that I was taught when I was in the university, they are the law school. The law we practice in Nigeria in 2020 is a foreign nonsense that cannot work here. Somebody talking about the police. I study classics up to PhD, and I'm also a lawyer. The idea of the polis in Greek means city. A polis is a citizen. The idea of the polis is that you have a small space. Athens was the largest city in Greece, 500,000 citizens. You now have a country you call Nigeria with over 200 million. And somebody sits in Abuja, calls himself the IG. He superintends over all the other so-called states, artificial entities created for convenience. And you want to police, it's not going to work. Now, the idea of the police is that you are able to know everybody in your environment. All of you, there is this thing you call autonomy in law. You must grow with it. You know, we have been separated for so long. Black men and women are not insolvent debtors to the so-called Western world. If you read history, you know that most of the things they ascribe to the West came from Africa. The idea of time, science, and all of this. So it is the idiotic, predilections of those who lead us that will make them believe that, oh, when you are in the humanities, you are in science and technology. These are illiterates who are leading us. So don't misunderstand me. But I'm saying that, look, for us to move out of these problems, we must begin to teach our children about ourselves. Let your history be your Bible. I cannot be a Christian. I can't be a Muslim. I hate those religions. I cannot be. Those religions promoted slavery. They still promote slavery. How can you hide from that? You pretend you are a fine Christian. You are living in UK. You are living in America. You go to your church. Useless places.
Thank you very much, sir.
There. Start to respect yourself.
Thank you very much. Dr. Odebowale, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Before I go to Dr. Babatunde Oluajo, I would like to, I just got a message from Ayodele Olofintuade, who was supposed to join us. She said she had network problems. And she just said, apology. I'm happy she's fine. I was worried because I could not reach her. So Babatunde, you have another 3 minutes to give your own reaction. Where's Ms. Ankara? You have the floor. Your reaction.
Hello. I'm here with you.
Yes.
I'm here with you.
Please.
Well, I just want to say finally that I'm not under the illusion that there's scarcity generally because the resources are finite. But my position is that I know God has given us enough resources to meet the basic need of humanity, and that any system that therefore deny people access to those resources to meet their basic need is an evil system. And I'm saying such a system that promotes scarcity, unnecessary competition, that glorifies greed, is a system that feeds, the challenges, human challenges like racism and ethnicism. And that as part of the measures of changing or fighting it, we must be thinking of how to reorganize society in such a way to make those God-given resources, serve the needs of the people. And of course, that is not to the exclusion of other things we can do. And one of them, like I did mention, was the need for us, for the black man to rediscover himself. And of course, for us to push back against those institutions like IMF, World Bank, that are telling us that our history is not important to us. Any nation, any race that forgets its own history, that does not know where it is coming from, can never know where it is going to. And those are the issues that I think are very important for me. And I simply think that as academics, we have a major role to play. We have a leading role to play in changing our curriculum, in helping out the next generation to discover who they are. That they are not just people who are just consuming the products of civilization. That their forebears were actually at the forefront of civilization and contributed immensely. And therefore, they should not see themselves as inferior to anybody because of the melanin on their skin. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I take the final party shot from all the panelists, I would like to, first of all, appreciate all our attendees. It's really very important. We appreciate them because they are giving us feedback. I will take one or two questions from there.
I'm very sorry. I missed part of your submission. No, I'm sorry.
No. It's okay. I would like to, Dr. Babalola decided that we should appreciate one or two or three of some of our student attendees, the postgraduate and undergraduate students. He has decided that we should give them card and data to support them because some of them are at home. So I have a few of them. Adejoke Adetoro, thanks for joining us. You can send me an email via the email which you register with. Chidundu Agbubasi, Emmanuel Adowolodu, Olawale Akerede, Precious Enahoro, Yakubu Zainab, Uyogene, Ese Ejakobi, and Bethel Egboro. I will repeat, Adetoro, Adejoke, Chidundu Agbugasi, Emmanuel Adowolodu, Olawale Akerede, Precious Enahoro, Yakubu Zainab, Uyogene, Ese Gbove, and Bethel Egboro. Dr. Boyega Babalola said we should give you something to support your online access for the 2 hours. So we're going to get send me mail, you get data, and also you get data, you get email, your top-up card for attending. Of course, minimum of 1,000 top-up card and also data. Thanks so much. I will take questions now. All our panelists can note the question, they can react briefly. We have one or two questions from our attendees. Oluwadare Joseph Oyebode asked the question, is it possible to restructure our education, history, and culture to handle issues affecting Black race? That is a question to all our panelists. Is it possible to restructure our education, history, and culture to handle the problem of the Black race? Damilola Habib asked, how is the internet supporting racism? Is there any way internet supporting racism? So Opeyemi Nuabalogun, he said his question is based on personal thought that in the far future, will interracial marriage among groups not obliterate the idea of skin color? That is from Noah Balogun. So all the panelists you have 2 minutes to respond to the questions, and then their parting shot. But before that, I would like to say that Dr. Boyega Babalola has asked me to support these students, postgraduate students and undergraduates, who joined our online webinar for today with a token of a 1,000 top-up card. And they are Adejoke Adetoro, Chidundu Agugasi, Emmanuel Alowolodu, Olawale Akerede, Precious Enauro, Yakubu Zainab, Iyoyo Gone, Eze, and Bete Boro. Thank you. So we'll go to our panelists. 2 minutes. Professor Omolade Adunbi, you have the question. You have the floor, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. This is going to be a quick response. Restructuring our education. Yes, I think it's important to restructure our educational system. I'll use the educational system in the US as an example. From elementary to secondary school here, you have to take sciences, humanities, which includes history, English language, and all of those. And you also have to be proficient in another language other than English to be able to graduate from secondary school, from primary school, middle school, and high school here. Then by the time you get to the university, it is the same system. Whether you are a scientist or an engineer, or you cannot graduate without meeting the requirements in the natural sciences, the social sciences, the humanities, and the language requirement, which is why, for example, in my university, we offer Yoruba and Swahili. These are the 2 African languages that we offer, and there are several other languages, European languages, that is offered at the university. And every student here who wants to graduate must take at least one other language other than English. So some students will decide to take Yoruba, some will decide to take Swahili. And I think that is the model that Nigeria should adopt. History is important, so you cannot say history is just an optional course for students at the primary, secondary, and university level. It has to be a mandatory course, because if you don't understand your history, you are not going to understand where you are going. Then the second point about how is internet supporting racism? I haven't come across any study that will categorically say that there are certain ways in which the internet supports racism. But here is the point that I'll make. People use internet for a variety of purposes. Sometimes when we use internet to make comments, and some of these comments might actually have racial connotations. So in that way, we might conclude that there are several aspects of the internet that supports racial discrimination, particularly in the ways in which we use some of the social media applications. Then will interracial marriage not obliterate cultural practices? I don't think so. So that, here is the thing that we need to bear in mind. Change is not, or let me put it this way. The world has always been in a state of flux, like some philosophers will say, that the world has always been in a state of flux. So if you go back to 1,000 years ago, this wasn't the world that existed 1,000 years ago. So this is not the world that is going to exist in another 1,000 years. So we have to bear that in mind, that interracial or interethnic marriage has always been with us. And that is why there is no culture that is particular to any. So culture keeps changing, and it is not monolithic. Then the final point I will make is that we also need to take into consideration certain practices that are indigenous to Africa. we have to take we have to take it into consideration, and we have to take it seriously, because I think it was Aziz that said that mentioned something earlier on about that. And I think a lot of African Americans here appreciate some of our cultural practices, which is why they practice some of the orishas that the Yorubas practice. In fact, in a state like South Carolina, there is a small community there that is called Olatunji, the African village, and they have a king there. And that Olatunji African village is modeled after the old Oyo Empire. So wherever you go, and in the Florida, for example, particularly Miami area, you have a huge community of Orisha practitioners. So they are all over the United States. And in one region in Brazil, for example, Bahia region, which is mostly populated by West African West Africans, and when I say West Africans, I mean those who were forcefully taken from West Africa during the era of slavery. So they still practice their Yoruba culture. They have a Gugun festival, for example. So they have all of. So while we are running away from our culture in Nigeria, they are embracing this culture, and I think we need to go back to that cultural practice rather than just being fixated with these two text-based religious practices called Christianity and Islam. I'll end it there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Professor Oyeshile, your parting shot. Parting shot.
Yeah.
We have to end in about 10 minutes. Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
We have to end in 10 minutes. Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All lives matter.
Short,
yeah. Black lives also matter. But to achieve that, we must embark on journey towards authentic development. It is when we respect life within the African continent that other races can respect us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Dr. Ademola Azeez, your parting shot, sir.
Yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, sir. Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Let me quickly address the first question. Is it possible for us to restructure our education and history? But it is not impossible. But how many years have we been talking about restructuring Nigeria, and up to now, we have not been able to even devolve our power from the central to the local. From the local unit, we are still dominating ourselves. As I see, but it's not difficult, but it depends on the perception. It depends on the political will of the leaders. If we're talking about our presence on the internet, well, I wonder what our presence is, the level of presence we have on the internet. The problem of poverty is still there. Infrastructural deficiencies are there. There's no light. If not for our presence in the school now, I wonder if we're going to be able to participate in this meeting with no light, no internet, no facility everywhere. So it depends on our level of presence and the awareness, the education that our people have. And the third question about if interracial marriage will obliterate our culture, well, it depends on who's dominating who is seeking dominance. Am I interested in having a caste? Am I interested? There are some proud half-castes who are proudly black. They are caste, but they appreciate being black, and they associate themselves with the black roots.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir. The parting shot, Dr. Adaora Osondu. Your parting shot, ma'am. Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Demo. I just want to say one or two things concerning how is the internet actually influencing racism. It's just a way, Prof has already answered that question. It reinforces divisive ideas. If you look at since at the time of campaign of Donald Trump, all the anti-immigrant stuff, many have bought into that idea. And before you know it, it creates a kind of division or what we call anti-immigrant sentiment. So it's a way that it reinforces divisive ideas among people. And lastly, I must have to say that it is a good step that we voice out injustice. In that way, evil is exposed. I must tell you, racism is an evil. It is, some people say it's sin, and I believe that, sin, against, because At the end of the day, sometimes it gets so violent, it gets to the extreme and it causes death. So it is seen on its own. We must voice out, and in that way, change is made. Today, we have achieved to an extent because the end of slavery and all that, because people stood up to fight for it. But it's also important to know that it's not always that we have to depend on violence to solve our problems. We must have to, for people like Dr. Azeez, we have to go into prayer to see if we can get all our what we need without violence. Today, our eyes are on America as if America is the only monster. It is time for all of us to treat everybody equal. All lives matter. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Babatunde Oluajo, are you online? Your party, Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, your party short, sir. Dr. Odebowale, your party short. Oh, he's not online. Babatunde Oluajo.
I am.
Oh, good. Yes, sir. Your party short, sir.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Okay, yeah. I just want to say that development is about the people. Development is about the people. Let nobody pretend that you can put something on nothing and you expect it to stand. Train your children. Train your children. Let them believe in you. Let them believe in your system. Don't expect me to carry placards for you because you are in the UK and your life matters because you want to be eating ice cream, you want to be taking champagne. I don't care about what they do in those places. I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Muslim. I have no apologies to any of you. No apologies at all. The Bible is just a book. The Quran is just another book. I am not interested in those ones. Teach your children to believe in themselves. Stop running away from the real issue. Teach them about the challenges we face in an environment. You cannot go to US and live for 35 years, 40 years. You are training other people's children. You now come to Africa to come and die. You are not. We don't need you. You are useless to us. When you have a problem, let us know you have a problem. All of us are facing economic challenges. All of us, because of the capitalist system we practice. So I'm saying that, look, you cannot run away from the fact that we have been alienated from our root. And it's about our education.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
A for apple, B for basket. Epistemology of the North is important. I have a PhD in classics. I have a law degree and I'm a lawyer. I'm saying that all these degrees are not useful to me. They have entrenched me. They have pitted me against my people. Begin to teach about restructuring the education. It is possible. Why must you speak English to your children? Why must you instruct your children in any foreign language? Who cares about France and Europe and America? Kill yourselves there. Kill yourselves. Let them beat you there. Let them do anything they want to do to you there. I will not be on the street for you. I won't be on the street for you. I know that anytime I step out of Nigeria, I'm treated as a less human being. Because of what you do, you sell cocaine. You sell cocaine, you are into internet fraud. I have not sent you to collect reparation on my behalf. So don't do that. Let us come home, train our children.
Thank you, sir.
Train them to be independent. Train them about our values. Train them about our past.
Thank you, sir.
Let your history be your Bible to help Christianity and Islam. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Where is this Ankara? Your parting shot. Where is this Ankara? Your parting shot, sir. Yes.
Hello.
I can hear you, sir.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you. Your parting shot.
My parting shot is that the black race must get politically. And yes, I'm saying that. Finally, that the black race must get politically and economically organized.
Again,
because we must link this to the racism that under which. Oh my God! Hello.
Yes, we can hear you now. We can hear you. Go on.
Hello?
We can hear you now.
Oh my God!
We can hear you now.
Hello. Okay, yes.
Please join us.
Yes, I'm saying that we cannot.
Yes.
Yeah, we cannot address racism in isolation of the economic and political reality that confronts us. So while we are fighting racism as just a symptom, we must equally get politically and economically organized in order to be able to, defeat racism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I would like to go to Professor Omolade Adunbi for his parting shots. Professor Adunbi, your parting shots.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you very much for that. I thought my last statement was my parting shot. Okay. One or two things that I will say is that wherever we live as a Black person, we have to appreciate the fact that we are all one, and we are all in this together, like they say, that the struggle is not just limited to those in the US or in Nigeria. So the struggle is global, and we have to embrace the idea that we cannot say Nigeria is isolated from the rest of the world, or the US is isolated from the rest of the world. So we are all in it together, and we have to embrace this struggle as Black people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Before we end, I would like to say that we are going to, our next webinar is going to be on July 4th, Saturday, July 4th. And we're going to be discussing between certificate, knowledge, and skills, revisiting the question of competence and employability. Between certificate, knowledge, and skills, revisiting the question of competence and employability. And we're going to have with us Professor Ayodele Olofintuade from Canada, Professor Tosin Badeniyi from South Africa, Dr. Samuel Ayebusi from Afe Babalola, Dr. Dayo Olutoye from Afe Babalola, Mr. Folawa Ajani from Ibadan, Mrs. Funmi Adelaye, and Ms. Tayo Owueye. That is on Saturday, July 4th, 2020. Once again, I want to thank everybody, and to these persons who have been thanked on our behalf by Dr. Boyega, Adejoke Adetoro, Chidundu Agassi, Emmanuel Alowolodu, Olawale Akinide, Precious Enauru, Yakubu Zainab, Uyoyo Ese Jakbo, Bethel Egboro. You have Dr. Babalola Boyega has asked me to reverse your data, what you use to get your data, and your voice, your top-up card. Thanks so much, everybody. On behalf of Afe Babalola, the founder and chancellor of Afe Babalola University, my vice chancellor, Professor Smaranda Olaride, my acting provost, who happens to be one of our panelists, and also the father of the Department of Sociology, Afe Babalola University, Professor Olatunji Olubulue. I want to thank all our panelists today. Professor Omolade Adunbi from University of Michigan, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate you. Professor Olatunji Oyeshile, I'm grateful. Thanks so much for your time. I am really grateful. Dr. Ademola Azeez, thanks so much. We appreciate you. Dr. Adaora Osondu-Otti, thanks so much. My own teacher and Oga, Dr. Oladoyin Odebowale, I'm grateful for your time. Dr. Odebowale is also the SSA to the governor of Ondo State. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. My brother, Dr. Babatunde Oluajo, I know you come back to academics one day. I look forward to that. I miss our palm wine at that our arena. I hope one day very soon we'll meet and take our good palm wine with a good aerobe, bushmeat, which anybody should not arrest us for tasting. Thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it. My name is Yemi Ademo, and it's nice to have all of you. Have a wonderful day. Thanks so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.